23rd of June, the people of Britain voted to leave the European Union.
The Article 50 process is now underway, and in accordance with the wishes of the British people, the United Kingdom is leaving the European Union. This is an historic moment from which there can be no turning back. I have just chaired a meeting of the Cabinet where we agreed that the government should call a general election to be held on the 8th of June.
In 2015, the polling establishment and the mainstream media had in unison proclaimed that the 2015 general election was too close to call, one where the Labour and Conservative parties were neck and neck, and where even if the Conservatives managed to pull a handful of seats ahead, would still lose by default, as they would not be able to form a majority even with Lib Dem support, and therefore the Labour Party appeared destined to win the 2015 general election, all of which was based on a year of opinion polls that consistently presented this consensus view right up until the polls closed. As a reminder, the consensus was for the Conservatives to win with just 270 seats, where even the BBC's exit poll after the polls closed at 10 PM proved to be wrong by forecasting the Conservatives would fail to win an outright majority on 316. Instead, the reality proved to be the exact opposite, as instead of Ed Miliband walking into number 10, we had David Cameron racing back to number 10 before the locks were changed, where this video explained in detail why the opinion posters got the UK general election 2015 so badly wrong, which was contrary to my long-standing expectations for a probable Conservative outright election victory. Instead, my market-skewed perception had accurately forecast the outcome of the UK general election based on my house prices trend trajectory forecast a good 18 months before voting day, as my following video of 6th January 2014 further illustrated my house prices based UK general election forecast.
Recent opinion polls put Labour 6 points ahead of the Conservatives, which would translate in a Labour election victory. Similarly, the bookies also all favour Labour as the party to win the most seats at the next general election. However, what the opinion pollsters, bookies and mainstream media commentators fail to grasp is the likely impact of an accelerating UK housing market momentum on a general election that is near 18 months away, as this graph illustrates the impact of UK house price trends on general election results over the past 30 years. The key point is that the trend and strength of housing market momentum during the 2 years in the run-up to each general election is a good indicator for the probable outcome in terms of whether the government or opposition party will win, and the likely size of the majority. Taking a more conservative house price inflation rate of 8.5% would imply that the window for an outright Labour election victory has already ended as of July 2013. An election held today would result in a coalition government with a majority of about 35 seats, and that the window of opportunity for a coalition government ends by mid-2014, after which there is an increasing probability for a Conservative outright majority. Therefore, in conclusion, a May 2015 general election would result in a Conservative overall majority of about 30 seats.
And as the following video illustrates, the final house prices momentum data analysis of 1st of May 2015, just prior to the election, fine-tuned the forecast for the Tories winning a single digits majority against the actual outcome of a 10-seat majority that no one saw coming, as even after the polls closed, the BBC got it wrong by predicting a hung parliament.
The latest Halifax average house prices data released for March 2015 of 191.5k is showing a continuation of the bull market after the pause of August to December 2014. House prices are currently showing a deviation of 4% against the forecast trend trajectory. In terms of the long-term trend forecast for a 55% rise in average UK house prices by the end of 2018, if the current deviation continued to persist, then this would result in a 15% reduction in the forecast outcome, to approximately a 40% rise by the end of 2018. House price momentum has picked up from February's plus 6.6% to 7.7% for March, though has missed the headline-grabbing new all-time high in average UK house prices just prior to election day, probably due to ongoing weakness in house prices in the southeast. Therefore, the Conservatives' mini-election boom appears to have failed to spike to a plus 10% inflation rate for election day, where my expectations were that it could have ranged to as high as plus 12%. That would have triggered an outright majority 30 seats inducing result, as my long-standing analysis of seats versus house prices forecast. The updated election seats trend graph suggests that the Conservatives are on target towards achieving a single digits outright majority, which is completely contrary to every opinion poll published this year. Which, if it materializes, then I'm sure for election 2020 everyone will be staring at the house prices indices rather than the opinion polls, though, as is usually the case, that when the consensus becomes focused on a particular indicator, then that is when it usually stops working.
Therefore, in this unique analysis representing a complete departure from the polls-based nonsense, I will take a look at what my house prices 5-year trend forecast and momentum analysis predicts for the outcome of this general election. It is now 3.5 years since exerted analysis and the concluding 5-year trend forecast for my then forthcoming UK housing market ebook was published. The most recent UK average house prices data for April 2017 has house prices effectively flatlining for the first 4 months of this year, showing an 8% deviation against the forecast trend trajectory, which if it continues to persist, then in terms of the long-term trend forecast for a 55% rise in average UK house prices by the end of 2018 would then translate into a 11.4% reduction in the forecast outcome to approximately plus 44% rise by the end of 2018. Whilst UK house prices momentum has been steadily falling since mid-2016, falling to the current low of just plus 2.6% in the wake of the Brexit uncertainty after a brief rally into December 2016 towards plus 7%. And there is no signs of recovery given the uncertainty of the general election. Nevertheless, summer months tend to be the best months for UK house price inflation, so the momentum graph should be bottoming out around the time of the election. In terms of the forecast for the general election, then it would have been marginally better to have had the May house prices data, which unfortunately won't be released until the 7th of June. However, indications from other indices such as the Nationwide are that house prices were little changed for May. The key drivers of the house prices positive or negative wealth effect in this election are the UK house prices over the following 3 time periods. Furthermore, the weighted average is in favour of the most recent data as having the most impact on voter behaviour. So, considering the 2 key UK house price momentum averages going into the election of plus 2.6% for the year to date and plus 5.4% for the weighted average, then these are net positives for the incumbent party, i.e. the Conservative government should increase its seats majority. However, house price momentum is falling, so over the passage of time since the EU referendum was held, the potential size of the increase in the Conservative majority has been gradually eroding, i.e. what it been better for Theresa May to have called the election 6 months ago, for say December or January, when house prices momentum was rising towards 7%, rather than for June. So the decline in house price momentum will result in a significant reduction in the size of the Conservative majority that will likely be nowhere near the likes of 400 seats that many in the mainstream press were banding about just a couple of weeks ago. Therefore, UK house prices momentum is forecasting barely a dozen seat increase in the Conservative seats total, from 330 to about 342 seats. That converts into a Commons majority of 34, which again is a far cry from the 100 plus seat majority that some still persist on. So whilst it would have been much better for the Tories to have gone to the polls 6 months ago, when they could have achieved a majority of near 100 seats, however, given the current house prices trend trajectory, then waiting another 6 months could have resulted in a hung parliament with a probable Labour SNP nightmare coalition. So it looks like an overly cautious Theresa May has played it a little too safe by not going to the polls earlier, but still did not make the same mistake as Gordon Brown when he bottled out of calling a 2007 general election. And this is my last sub-analysis in my Brexit general election series ahead of my final forecast conclusion that pulls all of the disparate threads together to form a seats per party forecast which is imminent. So ensure you are subscribed to this YouTube channel for that imminent analysis. And I mean imminent. Probably within the next 12 hours.